he discussed with me about a large amount of gold that had been stashed away in this mountain down in New Mexico. And I had been at Fort Huachuca for right at a year and a half at that time, and I worked with him, and we were fairly good friends. And I helped him out later in a divorce case that, I think that's irrelevant to this, what we're talking about here, but he seemed to trust me, and he called a gentleman in El Paso, Texas, by the name of Swearinger, that who I guess was one of them that was in charge of the overall plan to go into Victorio Peak, and discussed me with him, and I guess it was blessed that, go ahead and bring me in on it. So then we got into more particulars.
And what did he explain to you that they wanted to accomplish?
They were going to go in and look for the gold, and then later set up an operation where to go in and remove it, the entire thing, and or as much as they could, I guess. After we had went in there and seen what we did, it was a little bit more than what I think they bargained for, and but
at that point in time, had anybody in that group seen the gold at that point?
Not to my knowledge.
Nobody had seen it yet.
No.
But they had some indication of where to look.
Right. The indications that I got was no one had ever been inside before. And
so you traveled down to White Sands, or what was
in May of
step?
1981, we went down to New Mexico and met just north of Las Cruces, and Joe and myself, and we met up with this, and he brought two gentlemen with him by the name of, I can't remember their first names. One I did know, but the other one I don't even think I ever did know his first name, McDonald. That's all I ever knew of him. And another gentleman by the name of Porter, and I think his name was Joseph too, Joe. I could be wrong.
So it'd be five of you.
Right. And we met, and the vehicle that Oren brought up was too small for all of us, and to cut down on high visibility and stuff, we just left one vehicle out, and all of us climbed in Joe's Blazer and went in. And we went past a ranch. It's called the Hill Ranch, and he was more or less a watchdog for Victorio Peak in there, or anyone entering in the west side of White Sands. And he will come in the picture here in a little bit later on, Mr. Hill. But we had a lock. I guess Oren had went out and reconned the place. He had, found out what we actually needed and everything. We had a set of bolt cutters and a lock almost identical to the one that was on the gate. And we cut the lock, drove through, closed the gate, put the chain back on the outside, and put our lock on, so as to make it appear that no one had went in. We had some blankets that we drug behind the Blazer and settling out our tracks and stuff.
So now you're in Umbrio Basin.
Yes, sir. Well, we're just inside the gate. And we went right, well, yes, like you said, we went on into the basin. And we went up on sort of the northwest side of Victorio Peak. And there is not a real large, but fairly large rock ledge. And I guess Oren had on his many times of going out there, he had always searched as you faced the rock ledge to the right lower portion of it. And this time, I mean, he even mentioned this, but he says, we're going to try up there this time to the top left of it. So we walked up there, and there was a fairly large clump of bushes there. And he says, it's in here. This is what he said at first. And, you know, I was a little confused on what's in here, you know, I mean, but so was Joe. And I think Oren got his information from the gentleman by the name of McDonald, who I assume I was told, and I just can't remember. One of the two gentlemen that was with us used to be a range rider there, and I'm positive that it was McDonald that knew about this. And how Oren ran into these other two guys, I have no idea how he met them or got hooked up with them or whatever. But we started going through the bushes and pulling back bushes, and we found a hole. And the hole itself was back in the bushes probably 2/3 of the way, and you had to pull them back. And so anyway, we hooked a rope up to the trailer hitch on the Blazer and lowered it down in. And the hole was approximately 2.5 to 3 foot wide and approximately, I'd say 1.5 to 2 foot the other way. I mean, you know, it was an oblong type hole. And it went down approximately 20 feet. You know, all the measurements that I'll give you are approximates because we didn't have any measuring device out there to get the exact. And we lowered ourselves down and went in, and we went back in probably 30 to 40 feet and came into a room, not quite as large as this room here. It's pretty close to it. And the hole going back in was around 4 or 5 foot tall, and it was probably 3 to 4 foot wide. It was larger than the small hole that we went down in. And went into the room, and it was just total amazement. I mean, it was like many nights of going without sleep and wondering and everything had just, I mean, there were 3 stacks of gold. And the stacks each were identical. And it was like one in the middle and one went this way and then one went this way at angles. And the stacks were 2.5, 3 foot tall, 3 to 4 foot wide, somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 15, maybe 12 foot long. And they were all stacks of gold bars.
Could you describe the bars themselves, the size of them, the weight, appearance of them?
The weight I would guess would be 30 to 50 pounds. I mean, I know that's quite a deviation between the two.
So, Rodney, could you describe the shape of the bars themselves that were in those 3 piles?
Okay, they were, first of all, let me explain about the floor and everything in there. It was very, very dusty. I mean, the dust was just atrocious. I mean, it was real powdery, like talcum or baby powder type dust. And every time you walked or touched anything, the dust just flew. And it was extremely hard to breathe in there. And eventually, Joe and I don't know if the other 2 gentlemen or 3 gentlemen had them or not, but we had to get our hankies out and hold them up. I mean, it was bad. And the stacks were covered with dust. And as far as the size of the bars, they were Well, there again, I have to guess. I would say 2 inches thick, maybe 3, 4 inches wide, and approximately 8 inches long. The weight, like I told you before, somewhere between 30 and 50 pounds, maybe 30 to 40 pounds. I don't know. I know they're heavy. I do know that. And all the bars that faced, that were on the outer edge, had kind of like a crust, or maybe it was just the fact that we didn't clean them off good enough. We didn't have any soap or water or anything or whatever. But it seemed to me like that there was a crust. We didn't scrape them or anything, but we just took them and laid them to the side, and we wanted to get farther into the middle, and the more that you went into the middle, the more pure it got. And as far as percentage of gold after testing, that would just be a mere speculation. I wouldn't even. I have my ideas, but I won't even elaborate on it.
So you think that they may have been more pure, deeper in the stack because of the color?
Well, maybe not. Maybe due to the fact that they were not exposed to air or whatever. I'm not a.
But there was a difference.
Yes, sir.
A visible difference,
right,
in the outer layer bars from the inner layer bars.
Maybe 2 layers in. Okay. On the 3rd layer, they were basically the same.
Well, what did y'all say to each other while you're standing there over the piles of gold?
Well, it's the first thing that was said when we walked in. I remember Oren saying, "I told you it was here."
This is Dr. Swearingen.
Yes, right. He says, "I told you it was here," and I mean, it's like a little kid when he walks into a toy store at Christmas time. I mean, his eyes are large, and you tell the kid, well, you got 5 minutes to go pick out whatever you want, a little shopping spree or whatever, and it's just like that. I mean, you're just totally baffled. And
but you all had a plan. If you did discover it, you had a plan. Did you execute that plan then, or what happened next?
Yes, we did. Well, as far as taking anything out, no. We had all decided that if we did find anything, we would not take anything out, because people have a tendency to want to brag and show off and tell stories and all this, and plus they would go and maybe have it analyzed or assayed, and then questions are still going to start asked, and the people that you take it to might notify other people, and just carry it on, and eventually just ruin the whole thing. So no, we would not take anything out. And as I told you earlier, I wished I would have taken out a bag of at least dust, or had the boots that I wore when I was in there. Maybe you could scrape them and get a soil sampler or whatever, but unfortunately I have nothing.
But all 5 of you went in the cave.
Yes, sir.
And all 5 of you saw the same thing.
Right.
And you all 5 agreed not to take anything out at that time.
That's true.
Right. So what did you do next?
What did we do next? Well, we put everything back the way it was, or as close to it as we could, because you can't replace dust. And we left. We went back out of the cave, got our rope and stuff, and put the bushes back. Well, of course, the bushes was kind of sprung anyway, and they would spring back. And but we put things back as best as possible and cleaned up the area, and just policed it up. And it was, I'm a smoker and always have been for quite a number of years, and it was agreed that nobody would smoke, or anywhere where you could throw cigarette butts down, or there might have been gas in the hole down there, or the room, or whatever. And we just didn't want to take any chances of being stupid and leaving tracks or harm someone or whatever. So we got in the Blazer and we left. the same route that we came in. We got back out to the gate, and they had a welcoming party for us. This is where I told you about the gentleman that had the ranch by the name of Hill. He was, I'm positive he was their watchdog. And when any activity went in, anyone went in or out, he notified White Sands. And they sent the range rider out. And I guess he tried his key on the gate and it didn't work, so he cut the lock. And there were, 12, 15 MPs out there waiting on us. And took us down to the MP station. They interrogated us, separated us. But what was really funny is when we got down there, they treated us more like, sort of like POWs, separating, and getting everybody apart so you can. But they let us ride down there all together in the Blazer, So if we wanted to, get our story straight, we had plenty of time to do so. And this was somewhere around 11 o'clock at night, and they kept us down there. They released us around 3:30 the next morning, maybe 4 o'clock. I don't really know. I was tired. All of us were, and a little upset. And of course, after they told us that, they told us that they just can't understand why hardheads like us keep coming around, because there's nothing in there. This is after they asked us if we found anything or whatever. No, we didn't find nothing. We couldn't find a hole or, any entrance to it whatsoever. And what has been said about Victorio Peak, I think, is just a myth, and, it's something that some old guy back when just dreamed up something to, I think, more or less as a tourist trap to get people to come out there and camp and hike and stuff. But I guess they bought off on it, so they told us when we got ready to leave that if we was caught again on White Sands, we would be shot on sight. And that got my attention.
And who told you that? Was that the ranking officer there? Or?
No, the ranking officer, the provost marshal, I believe was a major. And this was one of his, God, I can't even remember. He was in civilian clothes. He was probably a CID or whatever. I don't know what rank he was, but he just, or an MPI, military police investigator. They read us the riot act, and that's the first thing they did, though, when they took us in, it was to read us our rights. And
did they create any paperwork about the incident?
No, they sure didn't. And that's something else that, I was in the military for right at 23 years, and, the government, we didn't sign any.
All five of you exited the cavern, and you were stopped by the officers, or the MPs outside the gate, and
Right.
They told you what?
They told us to get out of the vehicle, and moved us away from the vehicle, and they searched us, searched the vehicle. We had some guns with us, and they were loaded, but they took them, they confiscated them, and never said anything to us later about having loaded weapons and all this stuff. And something that sort of amazed us all is they waited until after we got out of the military reservation before they apprehended us, which we was out of their jurisdiction. I thought that it should have been under the county jurisdiction or the State Highway Patrol or, some other law enforcement agency instead of the military police, since we wasn't at that time on military property no more.
But these were military police and Army officers.
Right.
So they took you where for the?
They took us to the MP station at White Sands, and kept us there until around somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and told us that, they interrogated us separately, separated us up, and let us ride in the vehicle all the way there together. And
what were y'all saying to each other on the ride into the MP base? What was your discussion amongst yourselves?
we never found a thing.
You agreed to say that.
Right.
And did you make an alternative plan at that time of where you were going to go or when you were going to get back together or what the next step might
That
be?
was later, after we got out of the MP station.
Okay. Could you tell us about that?
Well, once we left the MP station, we went back to relocate Oren's scout, his international scout, and on the way back there, we was just going to let it die out and talk about it later. I mean, they were supposed to get back with us later on with Joe and I down in Arizona, and at that point, I had nothing to do with it no more. I didn't want nothing. No, it's the old saying, all the tea in China can't make me, lose my life over something I like to live too well, and I just didn't. I didn't want anything to do with it no more.
So you took this threat of being shot on sight rather seriously.
I sure did.
Well, what about the other fellows? Did they feel that way, or
Joe did?
Joe.
Yes, because Joe and I talked about this all the way back to Arizona. Now, whether the other three, they seemed to take them serious because they was saying basically, well, we better stay away from this stuff, and it's wrong, and it's not right to go in there and mess around, take the chance of getting shot and stuff like this. But if you look at the track record, there's been a number of people gotten killed over this stuff, and they got my attention. Yes.
So did you all say, well, we'll get together in a week or talk about this, or there was no plan to?
No.
Get back?
No. All it was they was just going to get with us later.
And who would be the leader at that point?
I always assumed, maybe I was wrong, but I always just took it for granted that Oren was in charge of the doctor.
All right. Good. Let me just ask you a couple of questions about back inside the cave. We're back inside the cave now.
Okay.
You said there's a lot of dust. Did that interfere with visibility?
To some degree, yes.
What sort of lighting?
We had lanterns in there. We had 3 lanterns.
All right. And could you see the end of the cave, the back wall of the cave or tunnel, as it were? Could you see if there were any offshoots or any other tunnels that might be connected?
To be perfectly honest with you, Terry, I never even noticed. I mean, maybe I'm a little narrow-sighted or, whatever, but it's right there in front of me, white, No, I didn't.
Didn't explore further.
No.
Could you hear anything inside the cave?
No. Well, just us. And we was making enough noises, No, I didn't hear a thing.
Okay.
I mean, anything, other than us.
All right. You guys think of a question? Something that I may.
Well, I think it was interesting that they didn't make any written record. I don't know if you already had that or not.
So yeah, did you?
You can agree with what I'm saying about the military and their paperwork and all this stuff.
Did you say that for the record already?
I think yeah. So back at the time of the arrest and the questioning, did they make a written report that you had to sign, or any paperwork? Was any paperwork created?
No. No written statements, no affidavits, no none of this stuff. And I think someone, as they were being interrogated or questioned, brought up to the fact that the legality of them apprehending us. And I think it was just an accident or a mistake on their part of apprehending us there, opposed to coming on in and Goodness.
Were they aware that you were military at the time, and did you ever hear any more about it when you went back to your duty station?
Yeah. I showed them my ID card, and of course they asked us where we were from, and we had to, give them our, address and all this stuff. And by the time I got back to Fort Huachuca, the entire chain of command knew that I had been on White Sands, and I had to go and report to the general. General Teal was his name.
What was his counsel to you?
Listen to what they're telling you at White Sands Missile Range. He says it would be, to your best interest to listen to what they've told you, and you stay the hell away from White Sands Missile Range.
So 9 years?
Especially while you're under my command.
Wow.
Okay. He did add that.
So 9 years passed, and you're watching TV and you see the Unsolved Mysteries update. And what went through your mind then, and what caused you to feel that this should be discussed?
Well, the main thing was the lying part, where I seen they said that the Army went in there in 1961 and removed everything, and there's nothing there. And the tap dance that they give us down at White Sands, the bowl that they laid on us, and then the fact that you have gotten congressional approval and it's blessed by, the House and the Senate and all this stuff. And I honestly, this is me now, and I don't really care how anybody else feels about this, but me personally, I feel your family has put out so damn much and lost so much that you have every right in the world to get this gold. You have paid your dues. Your family has. It's not only the loss of a life, but the aggravation and the lying, the covering up, and things of this nature. I can sympathize with what your family has been through, and I just, from my heart, feel that you people deserve this.
Rodney, the other 4 individuals that were with you on that trip, do you know the whereabouts of any of them, or whether or not they're still living?
The only one that I'm aware of is, well, I didn't know this until I come out here, or I talked to you on the phone, I guess, before I came out here. Oren Swearinger, I understand, is still in El Paso. Where Joe is, I haven't been in contact with Joe. I got a Christmas card from Joe in 1984, and that's the last that I heard from him. When I was leaving Fort Huachuca, like I said, he and his wife had gotten a divorce, and he was considering being transferred to some other military installation. Excuse me, where, I don't know. I would assume maybe Fort Bliss, Fort Hood, somewhere in Texas, because that was his native state. He was from Texas.
Okay, Rod, do you think you could give us a 3-minute synopsis of this whole story, leaving out a lot of detail, just hitting the dates and the key event?
Meeting with Joe, or started talking with Joe around January of '81. From that time up until the time we went in May, just read me in on it, learning if he could trust me, coordinating with Oren in El Paso, and then getting the approval. May of '81, going to Victoria Peak and entering, and to the exact date, I just cannot remember. It was on a Friday night, because I know I took a 3-day pass, And we left on a Thursday night and drove all night. And well, not really all night. We left early in the morning and got there around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And went up into Truth Consequences and just drove around until it was time for us to meet these other people. And went into the Victoria Peak that night, found the gold, left out, tried to make it look as though no one had ever been there before. Of course, there was tracks all over that place anyway. And I don't know why we were so particular. Came out the gate, got apprehended, and went to the MP station at White Sands, and was interrogated, left, was released the next morning around 4, and went on back, got the other vehicle, and departed our separate ways. And I guess Oren and McDonald and Porter all went back to El Paso. I'm assuming they did. We didn't know. And Joe and I went on back. We went up to a rest area and pulled in there and got about 3 hours sleep, and then went on back to Arizona.
It's quite a story. Amazing story. Anybody else have another question? Thought? Okay.
You mentioned tracks all over the place. This is outside, not inside the cave, is that right?
No, this is in, outside the cave. Right. There was nothing had been disturbed.
No sign.
No, sir. No, sir. You know how you go down, well, of course it was real dark too, but what light we did have as we was going in, you couldn't see where it had been worn by somebody at the front of them, sliding over the top of that or whatever.
You saw no bats inside the cave?
No, sir. There was no bats. Bats and rattlesnakes. Of course, rattlesnakes are not that far down inside anyway. They more or less stay more to the surface of the ground so they can go out.
I had another question, Roddy. Did y'all seal the entrance when you left?
No, sir. The only thing we did was put it right back the way it was with those brushes.
Right. Left the
bushes. To find that, or anyone else to find it, you would have to have somebody that, like us, that knew exactly where it was to tell you, or just out of sheer luck stumble onto it.
Do you think you could find it again?
Well, I'm positive I could find it again.
Be willing to go look?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Okay.
It's legal this time.
That's right.